Nivaleth. What was I thinking? Perry Armstrong asked himself on this late cold evening. The sun had already set, and the familiar scent of approaching rain hung in the air. He was sitting in an old barn, its roof already dotted with holes. Apparently, it had been a long time since anyone had lived here. The house opposite was a ruin, overgrown with ivy, where small creatures liked to hide in the cracks. This didn't surprise Perry in the slightest. Ever since the great and mighty Queen had begun to rule this world, many people and families had changed their lives in wondrous ways. He assumed the former residents of this place had withdrawn into the countryside, either out of fear of their own kind or because they had felt cast out. But now no soul ever had to hide again, for ever since the Queen had appeared, love had ruled. Every being, no matter what it looked like, was met with warmth and understanding. The world had become one of safety and trust. Some joked that the Queen was a secret sorceress who had opened the hearts of all their subjects. And truly, she had a magical, almost otherworldly presence. Perry had not yet had the honor of seeing her in person, but many people described her as incredibly kind and deeply empathetic. Her smile was radiant and heartfelt, and her eyes could see into your deepest desires. Yet Her Majesty also possessed unwavering determination. When one of her wise decisions was made, it was carried out, not by force, but by enthusiasm. Even the most notorious villains had chosen to leave their old lives behind and pursue the lives they had always dreamed of. The Queen had helped those who needed her, from advice to a stash of gold coins to start anew, or even freedom from a job that brought no joy. Everyone had received what they needed to find happiness. She also ensured the safety of animals, children, and women alike. Not a hair was harmed on a horse, a pig, or even a mouse. Meat was neither offered nor hunted. It wasn't uncommon for someone to encounter a small unicorn on a morning walk, gazing at them with kind brown eyes. With the new behavior of the people, animals had lost their shyness and fear. They were fed and petted. If one was sick or injured, it would be lovingly cared for. And on days like today, when a heavy thunderstorm with cold rain was forecast, animals were even invited into people's homes where it was warm and dry. As mentioned, not only the animals were free, women too lived lives of freedom, recognition, and peace. Each could wear whatever clothing she felt most comfortable in and wander through the forests without fear. All personalities and appearances were accepted. No lady ever had to be ashamed of her face or the way she chose to live, with or without a partner, with or without children. The man treated them with respect, gave them all the freedom they desired, and supported their decisions. This led the women to feel safe and valued. If a man knocked on a lady's door in the middle of the night asking for shelter or help, it was no problem. The lady could assist him without hesitation, without fear. That's how a deep sense of connection grew among the inhabitants, a bond truly unique. Perry loved living in this beautiful world. And who wouldn't? Of course, that raises the question of how he found himself in this situation, sitting in an old abandoned barn, even though everyone would have been willing to help him. The answer was simple. Perry had simply miscalculated. He wasn't traveling alone through the forest. "Do you still have an apple?" came a familiar voice from behind. Perry turned lovingly to his pony who had spoken and who was looking at him expectantly. "Of course I have one for you," he said with a laugh, reaching into the deep pocket of his cloak. Dusty, his pony, always had a huge appetite, so Perry always carried a generous supply of carrots and apples, and sometimes even a cucumber. Naturally, he never had ridden Dusty. He wouldn't even allow himself to imagine it. He had found Dusty back in the days when violence still ruled, alone at an abandoned rest stop. It had been love at first sight, and he brought the little pony home with him. Since then, they had been inseparable. The day before, they had wandered towards the mountains, hoping to reach a village. But when the weather started to turn and they didn't know how far the village still was, they decided it was safer to spend the night in the barn. Marching blindly through the rain in the dark didn't seem a good idea, and Perry would never risk Dusty slipping on the wet stones. So here they were, whether they had simply moved too slowly or whether Perry couldn't read a map. Neither of them knew for sure.